Microsoft open sources the Edge browser. How soon will we get the self-driving car and smart thermostats? They just leave me cold. Tech News Today is up next.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today, episode 1427, recorded Wednesday, January 13th, 2016.
This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by the Ring Video Doorbell. With Ring, you can see and talk to anyone at your door from anywhere in the world using just your smartphone. It's like caller ID for your home. Right now, get free expedited FedEx shipping when you go to ring.com/TNT.
And by Naturebox. Naturebox is dedicated to making smart, delicious snacking easy. They have over 100 ridiculously delicious snacks that get delivered directly to your doorstep. Visit naturebox.com/twit to get 50% off your first box now. And by Wealthfront. Wealthfront is a low-cost, automated investment service that is the most sophisticated way for you to invest your money. Whether you've got millions or you're just starting out, visit wealthfront.com/TNT to sign up and get your free personalized investment portfolio. That's wealthfront.com/TNT.
Hello and welcome to Tech News Today. This is the show where we talk about the tech news. We had a little talk today about what our show is.
What is our show, Megan?
We decided that right now we're thinking it's a little bit of, it's like a mini twit, like a mini This Week in Tech, a mini screensavers. So yeah, we're still working it out, but
a mini everything, because
mini.
we encapsulate all the topics of the Twit network.
Yes.
Who are you?
I am Megan Morrone.
And I am Jason Howell, and welcome to our mini everything, our mini Twit network in a show. Joining us today is Iain Thomson of The Register. How's it going today, Iain?
Pretty good, Jason. And yourself?
I'm doing awesome. I think we're both doing awesome. We've got some pretty heavy topics to talk about. It's great to get you on the show. You do fantastic work on The Register, and you've been on the network just so many times. You're one of my favorite return guests on This Week in Tech.
Oh,
when I was producing it. So why don't we get right to it? You want to?
Yes.
All right, we're here. We might as well. First story, the PC market isn't doing so hot. That's according to Gartner, that estimates PC shipments fell 8.3% worldwide in the last quarter of 2015. A company that seems to have avoided the downward trend and increased PC shipments is Apple, which according to Gartner saw 2.8% growth last quarter. And Gartner actually isn't alone. IDC also reports that the global PC market for the entire year was down 10.6%, with Apple seeing 6.2% growth worldwide. Apple bucking the trend as far as this is concerned with PCs.
Well, this is a global trend, so it kind of makes sense. I mean, we talk about this a lot. Like, a lot of people in the world do not need a PC. You know, they are fine on mobile. What do you think, Iain?
Yeah, I mean, both the Gartner and the IDC figures were actually pretty damning in the way of the PC as a whole. But as you say, people are shifting to mobile, people are shifting to tablets. And the thing that IDC mentioned was that, in fact, Windows 10's free giveaway offer might have had some influence on this as well. People usually, when they want a new operating system, they'll buy new hardware for it. But with Microsoft giving this away for free and guaranteeing it'll run on, or at least guaranteeing it'll run on most of the old computers, IDC thinks that actually gave a pretty big hit to the PC market.
Okay, I misread that because I saw that. I was like, how on earth would that happen? But there you go. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, I thought maybe people were not buying PCs or they were buying PCs earlier because they didn't want Windows 10. They wanted to, not have to upgrade. But then, yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. Smartphones, tablets, all these kind of things, these computers that we carry around in our pocket, not only do they do all the things, a lot of the things anyways, that PCs do, but you don't have to, spend the time and the money upkeeping them. The fan doesn't go out on your smartphone. You have to, upgrade that. And that's a reason why that pesky desktop that I have to replace parts in, over the years because they fail over time. Viruses, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot to be said for why people are shifting in ways that we talk about all the time on this network, to a smartphone in your pocket as opposed to having a big desktop computer. I have a desktop at home. It's a Mac Pro. The only thing I ever use it for is like music production. I never sit down at it anymore to surf the web. I never sit down at it anymore to, update my Twitter feed. If I happen to be there using it for a professional application like video editing or music production, then it makes sense. But beyond that, I don't really need that big kind of paperweight.
Yeah,
I don't know though. I'm sorry. I mean, if you're actually talking with an online forum on like Reddit, for example, I find the laptop is incredibly useful simply because it's got a functional keyboard.
Yeah.
Trying to do that on a smartphone or a tablet, and I'm getting typos everywhere. I don't know how you find it.
For sure.
Well, I have a working keyboard on my iPad Pro, and I was just using it, and then all of a sudden, there was one thing I couldn't do with it, and I was like, if you were watching the pre-show, you saw me like toss it behind and get my laptop back.
You totally threw that iPad Pro into the brick wall in the back, and it just shattered it. No, it didn't happen that way, but should have.
Mm-hmm. Well, on to our next story. Chakra Core is now open source. Chakra is Microsoft's JavaScript engine used in the Edge browser. The new open source project will allow developers to contribute to new features as well as bug fixes for the beleaguered Edge browser that no one that I've talked to seems to prefer to Chrome. I mean, Ian, do you use Edge?
I don't, in fact, no. I mean, I'm perfectly happy with Chrome. I use basically Chrome for everyday stuff, Firefox when I really want to, and Internet Explorer or Edge or Spartan or whatever we're calling it when I absolutely have to, which thankfully isn't very often these days. To be quite frank, there's enough good browsers out there, but an interesting move going open source on this, given Microsoft's historical antipathy towards open source software.
Right, yeah. Microsoft had announced, it was December, that they were going to open source some components of the Chakra JavaScript engine. So this is, of course, part of that. Source code is available on GitHub. And then they're also actually porting this to Linux, according to the Chakra Core roadmap by June, which is kind of interesting.
Somewhere Steve Ballmer is screaming.
I know, right? It's happening. Didn't see that one coming.
Well, yeah. I mean, maybe the fact that it's an open source project will make it better and lighter, and we'll see.
Yeah. Let's see here. Apple got into the ad business back in 2010 when Steve Jobs introduced the world to its iAds platform, meant to bring better interactive ads to iOS devices than were served up before. Sources are now telling BuzzFeed that Apple is taking a big step away from its direct sales role and instead putting publishers in charge of selling directly themselves. Could happen as soon as next week. And this is putting publishers in charge of, the creation, the sales, the management of those iAds. I'm not an iOS user. I don't know, I don't know what it's like to experience the beauty of iAds. Do either of you?
I'm not an Apple user myself, certainly.
Okay. That's right. You're on Android as well, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, Megan, as our resident Apple expert, what's your take on this?
I don't see them. I don't.
Yeah.
And so maybe I just don't notice them. Maybe they're that good that I just don't notice them. I don't see them. I think that they're changing the business around a little bit. And I do know that there was a big promise to them because iOS users are more engaged than anyone else, and so there was this idea that like here's all these people on this platform and they're very engaged and they tested it. But I think Apple's just like, we're not really interested in this business. We want publishers to be able to do
right. And I think they're admitting, which is interesting for Apple, they're admitting that they're not very good at that specific part. I don't think it's a matter of you don't see them because they're that good. I think it's a matter of you don't see them because there aren't that many. 2015 iAds share of mobile display advertising revenue, 5.1%. That's compared to Facebook's 37.9%. Google was, not much more, but 9.5%. So kind of sounds like iAds just kind of weren't taking off in the way that Apple thought. And so instead, give the publishers control. They're phasing out their iAds sales team. And yeah, the iAds aren't necessarily going anywhere. The functionality is not going away entirely. It's just they're not going to control it as much anymore.
I think it's kind of a hangover from the Steve Jobs days because, we've seen this with so many Apple products. He was firmly of the view that Apple knew how to do everything best, and that's the way it was. And after the iPhone launched, it was over a year before third-party apps could get on there. And I think they made the same mistake with iAds. They figured, we'll take care of all this. And then somebody pointed out that, hang on a second, publishers have been doing this for quite some time. Maybe we should let them have a shot at it.
Sure.
Yeah, so they're not interested in it.
We're so over you, iAds.
Well, let's move on. Google's December 2015 self-driving car report is out. It says robots cannot drive cars without human interaction yet. So this was about manual overrides. They say that they are decreasing. And so between 2014 and November 2015, Google says there were 13 occasions where one of their autonomous cars would have crashed into another object without the assistance of a test driver. So without a test driver stepping in and taking over the wheel. Now, the results of this report are kind of confusing. One thing is they measured was disengagements. That's how they described that cars handing over control to the human. So there were 341 disengagements, but only 13 of those would have resulted in the car hitting another object. So it's the technology is just saying, handing it over. We were talking about this before. I think that the technology is there, and you agreed with this, Iain, but just we're not ready. We're not really ready to hand it over. We don't know what to do when the technology fails. If we are not paying attention, we're watching Netflix, doing whatever in the car. So we don't know what to do in that case.
Yeah, I mean, I think the technology, I'm not quite sure it's there yet, but it's certainly getting there. I mean, they've done over 1 million miles on this with very little going wrong. The whole point of self-driving cars, if they're actually going to be anything useful, though, is that they shouldn't need somebody behind the wheel ready to take over if the software balks itself. Without that, then if you've got to be sitting in the car with your hands on the wheel ready to take over, you might as well be having some fun and driving it. And so, it's the whole raison d'etre of the autonomous car was that it was supposed to free you up to work on your morning commute, to go out and have a good time, and then have the car ferry you home so you could fall out of it onto the front door, or just to program in a thing and chat to other people on the route. If you're actually going to be sitting there concentrating, ready to take the wheel, constantly watching in case something's going wrong, there's really not a lot of point to autonomous cars that I can see.
Think of it this way. This is an interesting way to kind of frame it, right? Like autonomous vehicles have come a long way in a short amount of time, right? 10 of the 13 were the technology's fault of the actual, potential collisions. Basically what they do, Google takes these disengagements, they put it into a simulator to kind of figure out what would have happened if the driver had not taken control, right? And from those simulations, 13 of 69 would have resulted in contact, like you said. 10 of the 13 were actually the technology's fault. 3 would have been the driver's fault. That adds up to 30 crashes per million miles in real-world application. Conventional cars are 1.9 crashes per million. So 1.9 versus 30 per million. And then it ends up being like, wow, okay, autonomous vehicles might actually have a ways to go when you put it in that kind of framing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I guess a dozen years last night, that's just what I'm throwing out there.
Yeah.
But who knows? I mean, really, we don't know. And we don't know where the technology and where the legislation and all of that will match up. I mean, when you talk to an average person, they're just like, oh, but what if it fails? And it's just like, well, what if, I text on my way home and I fail? Like that's much more likely to happen. So
anything you'd like to share with us on your driving habits there, Megan?
I would like to say I try very hard, but I'm not the best driver. And, so I am really ready for this. There was some other news that came out this afternoon. Reuters reported that Mark Rosekind, he's the head of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. He told reporters that tomorrow, Thursday, President Obama is going to announce plans to kickstart the introduction of self-driving cars. So they could be here sooner than we think. Google and car makers from Detroit are said they're supposed to take part in that. So we'll see.
It's also a question of how much is this going to add to the actual cost of the car? Because if you've got to stick LiDAR, radar, a bunch of computing power in there as well, if that jacks up the price of the car beyond a certain point, then that's going to really harm adoption. But on the converse side, if you can get better insurance rates because you're less likely to crash, then, swings and roundabouts.
But don't you know, Iain, we're not going to be buying our cars in the future. We're going to be using services like Uber and Lyft, and they're going to be the ones that control the autonomous vehicles driving us around everywhere. No one needs to own a car when you can rent one.
Right.
But where's the fun in that, for goodness sake?
Well, do you have a car in San Francisco? Do you drive a lot?
Well, we have a car, but my wife uses it to commute in. I take public transport. But no, I mean, I go driving at the weekends and love it. Just test drove a Ford Mustang GT and had a whale of a time on the roads in that. And I can't honestly say that having it drive itself would have been any fun whatsoever.
Do you purchase music or do you stream it?
I actually purchase music. I'm rather old-fashioned that way. I like to own it.
At your core, you are a owner. You're not a borrower or a lender or a streamer.
If I have music, I like to own it, not to borrow it for a while.
Exactly. I think it's a frame of mind, right? Yeah. It's a certain thing, and I think people. I think kind of a certain generation coming up right now will be exposed to this at such a young age that it's not going to matter to them whether they own it, just that it's there when they need it.
Right. Yeah, that's the card sharing. And I think it's a generational thing.
Now,
Okay, so I'm officially old.
We all are.
sorry, I didn't mean to frame it that way.
No,
I'm
that's
right there
fine.
with you, man.
Yeah.
Google's Cardboard SDK for Unity and Android just got a kick in the pants. Spatial audio. This stuff's really cool. It attempts to create an immersive three-dimensional soundscape when the user wears headphones for being able to discern audio as not just side to side, but literally all around. It factors in things like, for example, when you think about what it's like to have, an ear on both sides of our head, right? Like the audio that's coming into one ear is blocked by our skull and it's delayed coming into the other ear. Things like that can be mimicked through technology like spatial audio like this, and it ends up kind of defining this world where it's three-dimensional audio that surrounds you, so you could hear footsteps coming from behind you as opposed to just side to side. This is basically the result of Google's acquisition of Thrive Audio that happened last April. So, it took them a little less than a year to kind of bring this into their VR efforts. And what I find also interesting is that in that same announcement that they had acquired that, they also announced the acquisition of Tilt Brush, which is like this VR kind of painting environment, as you can see in the video here. So, this is just, and this right here, what you're seeing is probably a glimpse into this, I would imagine, the near future of what Google's going to continue to do with their VR efforts. They've got so much going on in VR right now with Cardboard and, their recent hire and all this kind of stuff. So this is just an extension of that.
Yeah, it's amazing how much difference audio makes when you're using VR. It's a very effective way of immersing the viewer into what's been going on, because it does give you that feeling that, it's that extra sensory perception which adds to what is sometimes quite a jerky experience visually.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, I think the audio is interesting because it's much more personal. I know, when we talk about this show, it's like if there's something off in the video, it's okay. But like when something's off in your audio, like it really affects you. It's something that is really sensory. It makes it more personal. So I think this is a key part in VR. It's interesting. Also, we were talking today. Are we going to talk about VR every day? And yes, I think we are going to talk about VR every day. Like things are really happening.
Things are really happening. Yes, exactly.
It's all happening.
Well, the future is here.
I know, right? When news breaks.
So for-profit education programs, they're a bit controversial. Many leave students with huge loans to repay and no job to show for it. Many nonprofit educational institutions also leave that. But one for-profit institution that was started by Google fellow Sebastian Thrun just made an interesting announcement with their new Nano Degree Plus program. They guarantee graduates a job within 6 months or you get your money back. The new degrees available, they're in career paths for machine learning engineer, Android developer, iOS developer, and senior web developer. So what do you think about Udacity?
I've got to say, I think it's a great idea if they can actually follow through on their promises. It is rather shocking how certainly some particularly commercial universities over here seem to have made a fortune out of banking student loans from people with really very little chance of them getting a job at the end of it. Actually giving a guarantee like this and crucially sticking with it could be a major game changer.
It does feel a little bit like hacking education. Do we need this? And I completely agree. I just think that the for-profit education is in many ways a scam, and that's unfortunate. But I do love this idea. But there's some fine print. I think there's if you read it all, it says you have to accept the job offer. You're not going to get your money back. It could be a paid internship. So there definitely, if you're interested in it, you should look and read the fine print. But it is an interesting idea, and I do think that traditional education, for profit or nonprofit, is a little bit broken, and it could be done differently. And I think someone from Google might be the right person to.
Yeah, it seems like Udacity has their own kind of relationships to guarantee some sort of opportunity for people who are in this program. Like you said, paid internship, fellowship, some sort of mentoring system. So, but yeah, I think that's the trick, right? Like you're given an offer of this thing. If you want it or if you don't, like if you don't actually want that, then it doesn't qualify, essentially. Right. So,
I mean, you look at people, like everyone always uses the example of Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, like they never finished college, and look at what they've done. And, it's a different world now, but I also think that there is something to be said about this. There's all these boot camp programs where it's just learn how to code and you will get a job and you will have a great career. And it remains to be seen if that is going to be better than the way traditional education has worked.
Right.
Yeah, certainly. And I mean, there are other factors involved as well. I mean, how well do you interview, for example? Are they going to be teaching those kind of skills? Because particularly in the coding sphere, a lot of people who are fantastic at coding aren't particularly good with people. So whether they're going to offer some kind of tutoring on that front. But as you say, I think it all comes down to the fine print. If somebody's offered a paid internship at a few dollars an hour or something, then I guess they could conceivably get out of this promise and still get away with it. But I think if they did, word would get around pretty quickly and they'd start losing support very quickly indeed.
Sure. So SoundCloud has fought hard to stay in the free music streaming business over the years. Now it finally has a licensing agreement with Universal Music Group, which will protect it from lawsuits and bolster its upcoming premium music service. They've said that they have a premium music service coming sometime in 2016. This deal, at least, has been in the works since last August when it was first reported. SoundCloud has actually faced a decent amount of lawsuits over the years for failure to pay royalties. It's essentially, when you think of SoundCloud, think of YouTube, but for audio. User-submitted audio, essentially. But with that, and the same goes for YouTube, people end up uploading, certain unauthorized clips and things like that. So SoundCloud's had a minefield to deal with as far as that's concerned. So reaching these deals is kind of essential for its long-term existence, in the same way that it was really important for YouTube to reach deals with studios to be able to say, okay, fine, your music videos can be on our service, and now we aren't, ticking anybody off.
Well, is this good for creators? Because I know YouTube has always not been great for creators. Sometimes they take more than they really should. I mean, is this going to be good for people who create music and put it up on SoundCloud?
That's a good question. I mean, a big part of what makes SoundCloud interesting to creators is it's an easy way for you to share the music that you do make. Or the sound, whatever it happens to be, that you do make, and put it up into a platform that has a lot of visibility and users and all that kind of stuff. And the music that you make isn't necessarily, unless you're using unauthorized samples, or I guess there are reasons why it could run into issues. It's yours, so you're kind of choosing to do it, and you're not really putting yourself in harm's way necessarily. But I do think that SoundCloud, what it was designed to be, I think, is something along those lines. And what it's also becoming is this kind of music service similar to what we've seen out of other music services, because that's what a lot of users also want to use it for. And so this is kind of just their, steps to kind of move into that direction and make sure they have an existence, don't get sued out of existence.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also encouraging that it's a sign that the major labels are actually wising up and maturing about this, and they're not going to hopefully stop trying to strangle these services, with reams of lawsuits and business practices of a particular nature. They're actually coming to accept that, look, their old world is changing, and they've got to adapt to it.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole bunch of services out there, like SoundCloud, which are doing jobs that the major labels didn't or wouldn't do, and they're doing them better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see how long that's profitable, though, right? Because we've seen a lot of music services have a really hard time staying profitable with the razor-thin kind of margins that they get on any of the music that's done, kind of legally through their service. So we'll see if that works for SoundCloud. I personally, I'm a huge fan of SoundCloud, so I hope that it works.
Well, GoPro stock fell nearly 30% today as they reported lower than expected revenue. They cut jobs and had a senior VP resign. In a letter to employees, GoPro CEO said the cuts were for the greater good of the company. He also said the positive news will come from GoPro soon. He's talking, of course, about the Karma drone and VR. Of course, everybody's got to do it.
Everybody's on the VR train.
Yeah, I mean, I think, honestly, GoPro, they're reaching the point now. There is a limited number of people who want to attach cameras to their helmets or to their drones or the rest of it. You need to I think they need to try and expand their market a bit. And I did hear a very interesting rumor, and I stress this is just a rumor, but apparently one of the more influential analysts out there tried using a GoPro camera, was a little bit disappointed by the results of how boring it looked, and put a sell order on the stock. I don't know if that's actually been verified, but it's going around. I mean, GoPro, they make a fantastic product which there wasn't really being catered to by major sort of camera manufacturers. But in this, 7% workforce cut, that's really got to hurt morale. And you wonder how the company's going to do going forward.
Well, after the break, we're going to talk to Fusion reporter Kevin Roose about the quality time he got to spend with a revenge porn mogul. But first, let's take a minute to thank the first sponsor of this episode, the Ring Video Doorbell. Now, we're all familiar with the sound of a doorbell. It means a package is being delivered or friends are coming over for dinner. It's also the sound of someone who might be planning to rob you. Over 95% of the home break-ins happen during the day, and burglars almost always start by ringing your doorbell to see if someone is home before they begin to go through your possessions one by one. With the Ring video doorbell, you can see and talk to anyone at your door from anywhere in the world just using your smartphone. Ring's advanced motion detection alerts, they will alert you even if someone doesn't even ring your doorbell. Now, if your kids are at the age where they come home to an empty house, you could ask them to call you so you know that they're home.
That happened earlier.
It did.
That happened while we were preparing for this show.
It did. Yeah, I got a little call. I got the, that kind of fisheye lens.
I was like,
view.
your phone call is on speaker. I was like, wait a minute. No, you're talking to your kids through the ring.
Which is the best
awesome.
because I can see them, but they can't see me.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
But they notified me that they were home. My mom dropped them off. She was like, everything's fine. And, it was great. It was nice. It's one of those things that you don't think about, but it is great because, it's nice. It's peace of mind. And your kids aren't always going to remember to call you or even ring the doorbell. So they'll probably forget about 99% of the time. But there's motion detection. So sometimes they don't even have to remember. You'll just see, and you can see if they're bringing home anyone with them. You can also ask to talk to delivery people. You can keep an eye on your package. You can just ask the delivery person to leave the package. If someone gets near the package, you'll get an instant alert. You can see a video if someone's taking your package.
Yell at them.
Exactly. You can yell at them. You might even be home. You don't feel like going to the door. You have your pajamas on. It's awesome. It's like having a neighbor keeping an eye on your house 24/7. Installing the Ring takes just a few minutes. My kids did it with me just the other day. It was super easy. We did it first, just charging it with a built-in rechargeable battery. Then we did it with wiring and with our doorbell. It was awesome. And it's just like one of those gadgets. It's sort of like a toy, but it's useful. It's convenient. Makes you feel safer in so many ways. So put your mind at ease and protect your home with the video doorbell. Time Magazine and USA Today named one of their top 10 gadgets of 2015. Go to ring.com/TNT for free expedited FedEx shipping. That's ring.com/TNT. With Ring, you are always home.
I love Ring. It's a pretty great product.
It is.
There you go. All right. So most people want to run away when they hear the words revenge porn. Not Kevin Roose of Fusion. Kevin flew to Dayton, Ohio, and actually sat down with a revenge porn site owner. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, man, it's our pleasure to get you on. This was a really intense story. I have to say, when I was kind of like watching the video and reading through the article, like I got just kind of nervous and weird.
I threw up
here.
A little when I read
Did you?
it, but I'm over that
Yeah,
now.
it's pretty gross.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting thing. So first of all, a big pat on the back for having the guts to do this, because that would be super intense. That's kind of my first question. You met with Scott Breitenstein. He runs Complaints Bureau. You met with him at his house. He's never given an interview before, and he won't even tell people that are close to him what he does for a living. So I have to imagine the scene was kind of uncomfortable walking into it. Explain a little bit about what it was like when you first arrived and kind of that whole scene there.
So I had already talked to Scott. I had found his email address on the website and emailed him and just said, hey, I'm making this TV show about technology called Real Future. I heard about your website. I'd be interested to, hear your side of the story. Would you be willing to talk to me? And I sort of thought, like, I'm never going to get a response to this. But to my surprise, he wrote back and he said, sure, I'll talk to you. And he had no sort of shame about doing this. He thought it was justified. He thought, providing a space for men and women to post, stolen or, just nudes from their exes was appropriate. And he saw it as sort of an extension of his other business, which is sort of hosting forums for complaints against businesses. I mean, that's actually how it got its start to this site, Complaints Bureau. How
much of a business was he able to run through this site? That's what I was kind of trying to figure out along the way. Like, how successful, how lucrative is that for him?
Well, it's hard to monetize, right? Because most advertisers don't want to be associated with revenge porn.
Right.
You can't exactly like get a big sponsorship deal from, a big Fortune 500 company.
We hope
but
not.
he was running Google ads on these pages, and they did a fair bit of traffic. I mean, it was one of the biggest sort of complaint sites in the world. And I think, he told me that at its peak, he was making, $1,200 a month from this one site, which is not a lot of money to, feed your family on. But if you combine it with a network of other sites like he had,
Sure.
It's a living. It's not a lucrative living, but in Dayton, Ohio, it's a living.
Now,
given the
go for it.
given the lucrative nature of what he's doing, I mean, do you think he's actually, really going to wind this up, or do you think this will be reappearing in a different form in a later date?
So, just sort of for background, so I went there to Dayton to sort of confront Scott about Complaints Bureau and the revenge porn that was on his site, and we spent 2 days together talking and filming. And over the course of that, I think he started to sort of understand the pain that he's caused people. I don't think he'd ever really thought about these people, mostly women, as victims before. And I think that, by the end of the time that I spent with him, he really understood what he had done. And I think that made him very uncomfortable with it. And I think, just being confronted about it, I played him a video from an actual revenge porn victim. And I think those two things together sort of made him, think differently about it. And at the end of it, he decided he was going to take down all the revenge porn and stop doing this. And I think that's a really positive thing. And I think it was genuine. I mean, there have been some people who have been cynical and said, oh, he just knew that this documentary was coming out, so he pulled it down to save face. But I don't think so. I mean, he's lost a lot of money as a result of pulling down his revenge porn. And I think it was a pretty genuine change of heart, at least on this one narrow issue.
Yeah, he had said at one point, the site is a headache, but it's a job. And, you get a real sense of kind of the conditions that surround him. I mean, the video does more justice than talking about it ever could. Kind of see kind of the environment that surrounds him. You hear about these things happening on the internet. It's difficult to kind of put an image behind it as far as like where it happens and where it comes from. And watching the video, you kind of get a sense for, maybe there's a little bit of, I don't know, maybe this is an assumption on my part, but maybe there's a little bit of a desperation aspect to it. You need to make money somehow. It turns out this was making some money, and so Scott did it. I don't know. I don't know if that's accurate, but
I mean, I don't want to project too much onto him. I don't know.
Right.
I know why he says he started this site, but I think there's an element of that too. I mean, this is a poor neighborhood in a poor city where most people are really struggling to get by. And Scott, unlike most sort of plumber, he was a plumber in his past life. And unlike most plumbers, like he knows some computer code and taught himself HTML and PHP. And so he was able to put this site together. And I think there is some element of that where it's like, this is a job for him. Like, this is not, he doesn't get any, like, I mean, he might get some sort of perverse thrill off it, but it's also just how he feeds his family. And I think that's sort of where the cognitive dissonance came in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a fair amount of cognitive dissonance here, and but the bigger question is interesting because I've heard of other sites, like there's one called Rip Off Report, and there's a bigger question here about your online reputation. Your video talks about a third grade teacher, and it's horrible that this picture was posted of her and that it was personal. But I feel like this happens to a larger degree to a lot of people all the time, businesses and personal people, where it's just like something is posted about them that is untrue or just that they don't want posted, and it rises to the top of search engines, and it's very hard to go in and get that taken down. So I mean, what do we do about that? What do people do about that? Is there any solution to that problem?
Well, there's been some movement on this and some progress in the last year or so. I mean, we now have 25 or 26 states with revenge porn laws that make it illegal to post revenge porn. But we also have companies like Google, Facebook, and Twitter taking strong action against revenge porn. So now, if you're a victim of revenge porn, someone posts your nude photos online, you can ask Google to remove that from their results. And that doesn't make it disappear from the internet. Like, it's still going to be somewhere, but it'll be much, much harder for people to find it and for it to jeopardize your job or your family or anything like that. So I think this is meaningful, but I think ultimately we're going to need a bigger legislative response against people who host revenge porn, not just the people who are uploading it in the first place.
Yeah, and I mean, he had moved ISPs multiple times. At one point, I think at the point of the interview, he was hosting his site in France, different laws over there. He even explained in the video that he can actually sue a woman. There was a specific example where he could sue a woman who attempts to have her photos removed from the site for upwards of $10,000 when she requests to have them removed. How is that even possible? I don't understand how that's possible. Like, it's you don't want it up there. You asked to remove. I'm going to sue you for asking me to remove your naked photos. Like, how?
Yeah, I mean, that part is totally insane. Like, I don't think there's any basis. I don't think this is an enforceable thing that he does. But it's scary. It's scary to have your nude photos posted online. It's terrifying. And so these women are in a position of extreme defensiveness, and they're not sure what's real and what's not. So I can, and he's actually gotten a number of women to pay him this $10,000, what he calls like a defamation fine for defaming him, amazingly, and for his time in sort of restoring this revenge porn. So that part is totally insane. And I think like it just speaks to the fact that like Scott doesn't really grasp like the moral gravity of what he's doing always.
Sure.
And I think a lot of average people also don't. I mean, this came up with the iCloud hack with the pictures of Jennifer Lawrence. And, they were posted. And then a lot of average people just went and looked at the photos. And it took her coming out and saying, if you are looking at these photos, you are also guilty. And I think that was something that surprised people that they hadn't really thought of, just average people. I mean, we can look at this guy and be like, oh, what a jerk. But, there were a lot of people that looked at those photos. And I completely agree with her. I mean, those were her private photos. Someone came and stole them from her. And anyone who looked at them was guilty. I totally agree with that. And I think a lot of people were like, why did those, here, it's like, why did those women take those pictures and send them to their boyfriends? Like, they're at fault. And they're not. They're just not.
No, they're not. And it's Jennifer Lawrence called it a sex crime. And I think there's a lot of merit in that. Since this documentary came out yesterday, I've heard from a lot of people who said, well, if, these women didn't want their photos posted online, they shouldn't have taken them in the first place, which I think is totally insane. Like you wouldn't blame, someone whose bank account got hacked for putting their money in the bank. Like sharing intimate things with our partners is part of being in relationships, and abuses of that trust shouldn't reflect poorly on the victim. They should reflect poorly on the perpetrator.
Well, no, indeed. I was going to say it's almost exactly the same argument that we heard 30 years ago, where a woman wore a short skirt and she was asking to be molested by somebody. Mm-hmm. It's a very, very dangerous road to go down.
For sure. Incredibly powerful piece, man. And the video is really well done as well. So this is the Real Future video series. We can expect more videos, probably not more revenge porn videos, but what other kind of stuff do you guys have in the pipeline?
We've got 15 more episodes coming, and they'll be going up at realfuture.tv, and they'll be coming out about 2 a week. And we've got episodes on biohacking and drone racing and all kinds of transhumanism, and just we're sort of focusing on people who are using technology to change the lives of themselves and the people around them, either for good or, as we saw in this revenge porn episode, for bad.
Yeah. Well, Kevin Roose of Fusion, thank you so much for coming on today and talking all about this. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We'll have you back soon. Thank you.
So switching gears a little bit, we got an email. Hi all, I'm a small business that uses Square to process credit cards. I'm very upset if Apple is going to leave that jack out of their next generation devices. Hopefully Square will come up with a solution, but 3.5 is standard. Why break something that isn't broken? That email comes from Michelle. That's, of course, we were talking about the rumors that are still rumors, all but true, that the iPhone 7
They've been Germanized, by the way. So Mark Germanized. The next
iPhone, the iPhone 7, will get rid of the headphone jack. You'll connect through the Lightning connector, and so there's things like Square, which connects through the headphone jack. What are they going to do? I'm assuming Square will come up with a different solution. They already have a solution they have the chip readers, like that's a different technology they're having to get used to. The headphone jack mag strip readers, those are free if you go on their website. So it's not like they've sold people these huge, I know it's a whole system, but those ones that connect in the headphone jack, those are free. So I'm sure they'll come up with something. It's not out of the question that Apple might be coming up with their own point of sale hardware. I mean, they have Apple Pay, so Square's like a competitor to them. So it's interesting. But what do you think, Iain?
To be honest, I think it's not going to be as big an issue as some people think. In that, if Apple does dump the headphone jack, then they're going to have a converter in there somewhere that converts a headphone jack into the new port. Simply because there are that many, otherwise every single new iPhone buyer is going to have to buy a new set of headphones, which I'm sure Apple would love, but it's going to really rub customers up the wrong way. So if they do change the headphone jack, then I think they are also going to have to bring out at the same time a converter to allow existing headphones to go into the new iPhone. I mean, they'll probably charge a fair amount for it. This is Apple after all, but it's. I think that if they are going to do that, they're going to have some kind of conversion technology there as well.
Yeah, pretty certain that would happen. All right, after the break, Iain talk about hackers, ransomware, and a few more of his favorite things. But first, let's thank Naturebox for sponsoring Tech News today. Now, Naturebox is awesome because it fills your empty stomach. AAA of snacks. When hunger strikes, don't reach for the half-eaten bag of potato chips that happen to be, somewhere between the couch cushions, maybe even behind the couch. I don't know. It tastes like salt and sadness. Be prepared with smart and delicious snacks from Naturebox. All this stuff, all of Naturebox snacks are made with high-quality ingredients that you can trust. You can try eating healthier, and that it doesn't have to mean giving up on flavor. We got our Nature Boxes, didn't we?
We did.
We got our Naturebox boxes.
We got our boxes. These are the things I like. Those are the things you like. Never the twain shall meet.
Well, I wonder if we have any of the same ones.
I have Santa Fe corn sticks.
Okay. Apple pie oat clusters. We're going to go back and forth on this, apparently. Okay.
Classic. I don't know if these are new. The Dip It classic hummus.
Oh, okay. I wondered about those.
Yeah.
I love hummus.
You could try one.
Okay, I will. I'll borrow one of those. I'll give you a sriracha roasted cashew in trade.
We have another salted caramel pretzel puffs.
Sounds good. Dark chocolate berry trail mix. No big deal. Just delicious. What you got?
Chipotle maple almonds.
Ooh. I didn't see that one. Dark cocoa num-noms. All the num-noms, by the way, are awesome. That's why I had to get one in my box. I saved the best for last, by the way. What's yours?
Oh, my best. I saved the best for last, too.
Oh,
mine's
look at us.
Asiago cheddar and cheddar cheese crisp.
Oh, I haven't had those. I'll have to try your favorite, and you'll have to try my favorite, mini Belgian waffles. These are anytime they come here, I steal the bags and basically take them to wherever I happen to be, and no one gets any. And I'm sorry to everyone that doesn't get any, but there you go. You can fill out your own snack profile and get personalized recommendations based on your preferences. And the best part, Naturebox delivers right to your door, or to your work in this case. Spend more time getting things done and less time searching through the couch cushions or behind the couch cushions. Fuel your game engine with healthy snacks. Just visit naturebox.com/twit to get 50% off your first box now. Slay the hunger dragon with the sword of nutrition at naturebox.com/twit. Go there. Get 50% off your box of delicious personalized snacks sent to your doorstep. There we go. All right, yummy. All right, Iain, what you got? Probably not as delicious as that.
No.
I've got a rumbling stomach at the moment, it's got to be said. I had an early lunch and it was a salad, unfortunately. So I'm just I want some cheesy nom-noms, please.
So, in this day and age, it is not easy for bosses to monitor how long their employees are sitting at their desk. They can try, but one thing that not many bosses have tried is secretly installing motion detectors. But one media company did that. Tell us about it, Iain.
Yes, this is the Daily Telegraph, which is one of Britain's oldest national newspapers. And staff there came back from the weekend break to find little grey boxes installed under their desk. Now, these are motion and heat sensors, which tell a spreadsheet that is in control of human resources who exactly is at their desk, how long they're at their desk. And it didn't go down well, put it that way.
Yeah, they broke the news to. Did you hear this from someone that worked there? Was that? I guess you can't reveal your sources, but that's what a lot of people did first, right? They're in the news business.
Yes,
that's what they're going to do.
This isn't going to get out.
Exactly. They obviously we don't reveal sources, but an awful lot of journalists got calls from friends who are on the Telegraph explaining what went on. Some people actually went under their desks and pulled the batteries out. And then as news spread, basically the Telegraph management said that, okay, we're actually taking these boxes out. They were there just for environmental monitoring, just to see how our heating systems were working. But in light of this, we'll take them out and gather the data another way. which is kind of odd because the company that makes the boxes actually builds them as a great way to introduce hot desking in a company by examining exactly how much desk utilization actually goes on. And there's not much of a mention of environmental controls in there. So more cynical minds than mine think that maybe management are taking a bit of a lenient attitude toward the truth in this case.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those scenarios where you probably should just should have come clean with your initial chance at reaching the public with why and how it happened and stuff like that. Because this just now looks even worse, and it already kind of looked bad. Now, oh yeah, that's unfortunate.
And so it's kind of low tech if you think about it. I mean, there's so many ways now. We hear about people get tracking employees on their phones, and all these other ways that you could do it, or just having to log in, or knowing when they're on their PCs, and especially a place like that where you'd assume that people were on their computers and you could track that way. Just to use a device stuck under the desk, that seems silly.
It is very low tech, and it's a very easy thing to spot because it's hardware based.
Right.
The really pernicious part of this is it's going into software. Microsoft made a purchase of a company in September, which is building this kind of technology into Office applications. So, for example, you could see who's using their email and when, how long they're looking at certain spreadsheets, how they're using shared documents, which on one level sounds very good because you can optimize your work processes. But it doesn't really take into account the effect on the person who's using it and the effect on morale within the company. I mean, one of the points which our readers raised when we published this story was really the only way that you should be measuring an employee's performance is, are they doing the job? All this stuff about, are they at their desk? Are they doing it around the water cooler, whatever? That really shouldn't matter. Are you doing the job? And if so, then back off and out of people's lives.
Right. Yeah, that is the big question. If anyone's ever, all the bosses that I have loved, including my current boss, that's what she says, as long as you get the job done, then, it's fine. Do what you need to do when you need to do it. So, yeah, but that's just a sign of a boss who doesn't trust his employees, his or her employees when they don't do that. So.
Indeed. And no mention at all of whether or not these went under bosses' desks or under human resources desks. I have a sneaking suspicion that maybe they weren't there.
Well, it's environmental, right? Their desks are environmental areas as well. So I would assume, yes, they went everywhere.
Mm-hmm. You would assume, yes, but one wonders.
Okay, you have another story up on the register about ransomware. That's the malicious software that locks up your computer until you pay up. I mean, anybody who knows more about technology than their friends or family have gotten these emails like, oh, my computer says I can't use it till I pay this amount of money. I don't know what's going on. So we've probably all seen and helped our family and friends out of this situation. But it's apparently a pretty profitable business, ransomware. You did some research into this. What did you find?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hugely profitable business. I had a chat with Mikko Hyppinen, who's the Chief Research Officer at F-Secure. And he's just been going through a Bitcoin wallet that's used by one of the most popular ransomware programs. And just in the space of a year or so, this gang moved over $2.2 million worth of Bitcoin through their wallets and off to other accounts. And that's just one account. There's been some research over the last 3 years that thinks that Crypto Wall, one of these ransomware things, it's actually pulled in $325 million over the last 3 years, which is a phenomenal amount of money when you think about it. That's more than most of the tech unicorns out there in Silicon Valley are pulling in terms of revenue. It's more than established giants like Yahoo are even pulling in profits. So, it's a huge business. And they're also taking on the forms of businesses in terms of the way they deal with the people they're extorting money from, going much more of a sort of a customer-centric approach, as it were.
So I guess the lesson we're learning from this episode of Tech News Today is crime does pay.
Well, yes, I guess somebody like that. We wouldn't want to be seen to encouraging crime.
Yes, exactly.
It's one of those things. I think it pays up to a point, but with a legitimate business, if it doesn't pay, then you get out and you pad your pension fund and you find a new job. With this, if it doesn't work, you end up in jail for a serious amount of time. So, there are swings and roundabouts to this, but ransomware is interesting in that it in the old day, in the good old days of computer hacking, if your computer got infected, it could get sold onto a botnet and you could monetize the infection that way. Or you could try and grab money from somebody's bank account. With ransomware, it's a very quick and easy thing. You infect someone's PC, they give you the money directly, end of story. No middlemen to pay, just basically coining it in.
Yeah, it's great. Maybe this is the Udacity model. Like if, we'll get you a job. If it's doing ransomware, we'll get you a job or your money back. That's in the fine print. It's like it may be a criminal job, but
Udacity's yelling at us right now going,
Yeah, no.
don't pull us into this.
just
We have no reason being a part of this story.
Well, it was interesting because, one of the things he said was that what they're seeing with the ransomware providers is once you've actually paid up the ransom, they'll actually work with you in a sort of customer service way to make sure that you get all their files back, because what they're after is the reputation that if you pay, then the problem will go away, because that helps them in the long run, in that it encourages more people to pay. So in a way, people are almost being socialized to deal with, to actually trust criminals to give them back their data after they've already tried to sell it. So it's rather a disturbing concept when you think about it. We're getting socialized into criminal activity.
Yeah.
Well, that was what we talked about, that YouTube story the other day. It was malicious, or it was malicious on the Android App Store. It was malicious software that would also leave good reviews. Like that was part of it. Like if it would. Part of the malware would mean that it would leave a good review in the Google Play Store.
It would download and review positively its other network of apps.
Yeah. So criminals are getting smarter.
Yes, they are.
Always evolving. It's just a question of sooner or later we're going to have to evolve against them. I think in evolutionary terms it's called the Red Queen theory after Lewis Carroll. You're constantly racing against each other and trying to come up with new counter approaches and new criminal approaches, and equilibrium is reached. Unfortunately, we all end up paying through the nose for it.
Yeah, I mean, is there ever a point though where that battle for control ever is superseded by something? I don't know. I guess it's an eternal battle.
Mm-hmm.
It's a possibility. I mean, everyone's always saying there'll be a tech fix for it sooner or later along the lines.
Yeah.
But it was 10 years ago that Bill Gates said that within 4 years spam would be gone, and judging by the state of my inbox, it's still doing very well, thank you.
Yeah,
So,
it's gone. It's just put off into a folder that you hopefully don't look at if it's effectively filtered. That's about all it's gone. Yeah.
Unfortunately, a bunch of other mail ends up in there anyway. And
That's
you
true.
Read through it to make sure, but such is life.
Yep. Well, this mail didn't end up in there. Actually, this wasn't through our email. TNT's fan of the day is Robert Seals. He sent this as a picture on Google+, so not through email, saying, "This is how I watch TNT at work. Spreadsheet on the left, TNT on the right."
You saying something smart.
Or me being very stumped. I'm not sure. My mouth is agape in that picture, so I might just be going like this. Or something. Sorry, I had waited on that far too long. Show us how you watch or listen to TNT. Just record a video or take a picture of yourself or your setup. Post it to Instagram, Google+, Twitter, Facebook, Peach. We've gotten a couple from Peach, strangely. And use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT, and we are hopefully going to find it. We'll certainly be looking for it, so there you go. All right, after the break, is the Nest thermostat leaving people in the cold? But first, let's thank Wealthfront for sponsoring this episode of TNT. You know what you should be investing your money, for the long term. That's probably pretty smart for for your family's financial health. You should be doing all that. And you've probably wondered how you should do it. Trying to do it yourself the right way is complex. It's time consuming. Luckily, there's Wealthfront. Traditional advisors charge huge fees between 1% to 3% of what you've got under management, plus hidden fees for transactions and changes. Wealthfront makes it easy for anyone to access world-class long-term investment management. You can get started investing today at a minimum of $500, and it only takes a few minutes to sign up for an account. You just go to wealthfront.com. It goes right to work, monitoring your portfolios round the clock, and taking action as soon as an opportunity arises. Their seamless software actually optimizes your investments for the best risk-adjusted return, net of taxes and fees. And we've heard from many Twit fans who've used Wealthfront and love how they can diversify their portfolios and buy stocks from in-demand companies like Apple, Amazon, Facebook, all commission-free. Wealthfront is transparent, it's accessible. You can view all your accounts in one single place, whether they're personal, joint, or retirement. You can also see every trade that Wealthfront makes on your behalf in the dashboard on your desktop or inside their mobile app. There's sophisticated investment strategies like tax loss harvesting and direct indexing actually optimize your after-tax returns while simultaneously lowering your tax bill. With Wealthfront, you pay 0.25% a year. That's 25 basis points, 0 commissions, and no hidden fees. That's less than $5 a month to invest a $30,000 account. There are no additional charges for any of Wealthfront's services. And Wealthfront manages over $2.6 billion in client assets, and it's grown over 20 times in the past 2 years. So what are you waiting for? Invest in your future today with Wealthfront. Visit wealthfront.com/TNT to sign up and get your free personalized investment portfolio. You're going to see the customized allocation that's recommended for your profile. And just for Twit listeners, if you sign up to invest, Wealthfront will manage your first $15,000 entirely free of charge for life. Join the many Twit fans who have seen huge success with Wealthfront and claim your offer today at wealthfront.com/TNT. We thank Wealthfront for their support. All right, Megan, what we got here?
Well, Nick Bilton, the style editor at the New York Times, he is a great writer. I'm a big fan. He also gets in trouble sometimes. You might remember last year he wrote a piece about wearables and their health concerns that turned out to not be very accurate. But he posted a piece today, a column about how his Nest-connected thermostat glitched in the middle of the night, turning his house into a refrigerator, and not one of those wonderful smart refrigerators from CES that I really want. Now, apparently this is a common problem. Iain, you wrote about this too. Nest said the issue has since been fixed for 99.5% of its customers. Bilton writes that, to be fair, the company's tech support has been working hard to help users who are affected. But this is interesting because I don't know how big of a story this is. I don't know if this was just like a little bit of a glitch or what. But I think it brings up a bigger question about what happens when our smart homes suddenly are not so smart anymore.
Suddenly turned off.
Yeah, I've got to say, I mean, that $25 mechanical thermostat I've got in my house is looking really good right now, because no batteries to run down, no software updates to balk it. It's I'm really quite satisfied with that. I mean, I'm not quite sure how widespread a problem this is. We've got one of the guys in the office who does have a Nest thermostat, but in his case, he's actually tied it into the power supply, so the battery drain wouldn't really cause a problem. But for example, if you left your home for a week and you live in a cold part of the US or a cold part of the world, and you're relying on this thermostat to actually keep your house warm and stop your pipes freezing up and cracking, this could be a major issue. And it's just one of those things where the software is bound to go wrong at one point or another. It always has and it always will. And when it's something like this, particularly in the middle of winter, then the consequences are immediately apparent and get a lot of people very riled up.
I think what I'm trying to, the reason I like this story is because it's ridiculously apropos to my life at this very moment. Yesterday, we got a new thermostat installed. We're getting all heating and all this stuff installed over the last couple of weeks. Yesterday, the thermostat went in. Last night, I got home from Twit, and it's a new Honeywell Smart with a screen. The old one was the little slider, fully mechanical and everything. This is the new one. I couldn't get it to do anything. It was freezing cold in the house. I couldn't get it to connect to the heater in the other room. I had to tell them. They came over this morning, and they went through 3 before they said, okay, well, now we're going to go with a wireless unit. And that requires its own router. So, and I can't use my router. So now my thermostat, which used to be just this dumb box on the wall that I'd go here and it would turn on, needs its own router. And at what point, why do we need internet connected everything? Because seriously, I just want heat.
Right.
And I think that's why this story kind of interests me, because we're in this rush right now, at least technology proficient people that are really fascinated by this stuff just think, oh, well, more is better, more is better. But it turns out it actually kind of in some ways it might simplify things, but in other ways it actually kind of complicates things. Same with my Logitech. I have this Logitech Smart Hub remote that we got for Christmas, has a little hub that connects to Wi-Fi and then an RF remote. And the hub is what's actually sending all the signals to the devices. I've had that hub go out 3 different times. And what does that mean? We can't turn on our TV. The remote that's in the cabinet over there that we put away because we don't want to have 4 remotes out does it perfectly fine every single time. It's just the inconveniences of conveniences is what's kind of bugging me right now.
The inconveniences of conveniences. That's good. Yeah. Yeah,
also, you've got to remember that a lot of these products are version 1 or version 2. So you're going to get an awful lot of bugginess to be worked out in the system. As you say, your thermostat wasn't working properly, the TV remote doesn't work properly, Nest falls over. Basically people are being used as an enormous test case for these products and as beta testers almost. and it's costing us a fair amount of money to get this hardware in your kit. It doesn't work. I can see a backlash developing over this one.
Yeah, I mean, it does. Sometimes when it works, it doesn't work with other things that you have. There's this. I have Apple's HomeKit. I have I have the Nest. They don't work together. That's frustrating too. In terms of the Nest, the thermostat, I mean, kind of like on the West Coast, we're probably not the best to say like, oh, you poor thing.
I know, right? Yeah, like it was cold
It
for
was
me, but it was
60
still totally
degrees.
fine with a blanket. Like I was okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, it is fun to be early adopters, but yeah, it can be frustrating.
Yes.
There's also the security aspect to consider, because all of this information is being beamed around. Now, not only is that information pick upable by other people in a large number of places, because very few of these gadgets actually encrypt it, but more importantly, if they're actually kind of linked into your home internet network and there are serious flaws within the software, then that could be potentially open up a whole new area of home hacking. And it does seem that the Internet of Things devices that we've got coming down the line, they really haven't been thought through from a security perspective. It's more about getting the things to work in the first place. Oh, and we'll sort out security later because nobody's really hacking these things yet. But that day will come.
Yeah.
Yeah, not to scare you or anything.
This coming from a man who writes all about security at the Register.
Yeah, I think
nothing like the security beat to make you feel paranoid.
right.
I know. I would not be a very happy man if all I did all day and night was, eat, drink, and breathe security and then write about it, because that's a scary beat to be on.
But we love talking to you about
Yes.
it. Thank you so much, Iain, for coming on. It is always a pleasure to talk to you about all the stories you write. What are you working on? Anything else you can tell us about?
Yeah, we've got some interesting stuff coming up on a company called Norse, who are in the security field where things may not be all what they say they are. And of course, we've got the SpaceX launch coming up on Sunday, and with any luck, the first water landing by a rocket, although it's possible that it may fall over and explode, but hey, that's always good stories as well. So, yeah, very interesting times coming up ahead.
Well, we can find Iain at the Register and on Twitter. What's your Twitter handle again, Iain?
Iain Thomson, at Iain Thomson, Iain with 2 I's and Thomson with no P. And yes, I have had words with my parents about the spelling of that name.
And are you on Peach yet, Iain?
I'm not an iOS user, so Peach is a closed door to me at the moment.
Not as of today. I don't, Jason.
Oh, really?
There is some sort of hack you can get around.
Here, Anthony, I'm going to put this in the doc right underneath Ian's Register link there. But yes, so basically,
if you want to waste time, too.
If you want to do this, Jason Miller on Twitter kind of replied me. He spent a weekend and used the unofficial API of Peach to create a website that you can use. It's open source. It's fully open source. To using the unofficial API essentially to bring Peach to Android. So there it is, peach.surge.sh. And it's a little buggy at this point, but he's working hard on it. And I was like, oh, hey, I can, at the very least, I can reserve my username.
Yeah, it was very annoying when you say, oh, Peach is the big thing. Peach is the big thing. It's like, oh, hang on, it's iOS only.
Yeah.
Now, if you're trying to build a social network, generally it's a good idea to go with 80% of the phones out there rather than 20%, I would have thought. But, hey, this is Apple users we're talking about, so maybe they're going for the
fruits.
But I'm not saying actually any more than that.
Time and time again, it does not play out that way. It ends up hitting iOS first. And then, now that Android, the gates are open on Android, we're going to start seeing a flock of, I'm over Peach. I'm so over Peach.
Well, we saw this with Hello, right? I mean,
totally.
Hello is going to be the Facebook killer, and it's just dying on its backside at the moment.
Yeah.
I go on there, and it's you might as well have virtual tumbleweeds rolling over the pages. It's very hard to get a new social network off the ground, and you do need something really, really quite special. But on the other hand, we do need better social networks than the ones we've got at the moment.
I suppose.
It's true. Better social networks, better Nest, but we've got our excellent security reporting from you. Thank you so much for joining us, Iain.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. We'll talk to you soon. Tomorrow's guest will be Tim Stevens of CNET and actually their newly launched Roadshow site, which is very awesome. They launched that at the Detroit Auto Show a few days ago. So I'm sure he's going to tell us all about that. That's tomorrow's show. TNT records live every Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, 12 a.m. UTC at twit.tv/live. You can also be a part of the show, and please do email us at tnt@twit.tv, or you can also leave us a short voicemail, 260-TNT show. And why don't you hit us up on Twitter? We're there and active. Tech News Today TV.
Don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes or Stitcher, TuneIn, your favorite podcast catcher. All the ways to subscribe are there on our show page at twit.tv/TNT. And if you want to get in touch with us, hit us up on Twitter. I'm at Megan Morrone.
And I'm Jason Howell. And that's all we have for you today. Thanks so much for talking with us today. And we will see you tomorrow. Bye, you guys.
High five.
We missed. Try. Kind of.
Your hands are so big, too. Here, high five, Iain.